Okay, so we're back to Let's Build a Design System. This is our ongoing series. We should be at number 4 in this series, and this is about testing our components and all the components that we made, plus a few more that I made for you while you guys were resting and enjoying your lives last week. So let's hop right into this. I am going to go ahead and full screen this and quickly, as we always do, just take a quick overview of our components and look at what we've built. But also to give you an overview of what we're going to do today, this isn't like a rigorous testing routine or anything like this. This isn't going to test all possible combinations of everything, but these are some good reminders and some good pointers to help you along your way in building a design system. Now, this isn't an enormous design system because we built it on stream, but it is cool, and there are things that we can learn from it. The other thing that I'll be doing today for you all is I've got a series of links, all sorts of like different plugins and links that can help along with this. And I'm just going to share them as we go. And then as usual, at the very end of this stream, we're going to go ahead and just publish this right out to the community. And let me just go ahead and put in here. I'm going to put in my handle for the Figma community. And that should, that's where this file will live. So you'll be able to download this file right away. For you, Serbi, just before I jump in, missed the previous sessions, where can I find recording of those webinars? You can find them at this link. Let me go ahead and link it in. Actually, I'll have Ozra do. I don't even, look, she's like the extension of my mind. I love it. Thank you, Ozra. Yep, so we've got a bunch of them already recorded. 1, 2, and 3 are already out there. So anyway, let's just jump in and see what we've created. I also want to preface this by saying this isn't the only way to create a design system. Y'all are very creative, I'm sure, and there's lots of different methodologies that you could use in this. Most importantly is the conversation that you have with your designers and your developers and the people that are actually going to be using this to make sure that you haven't created something so complex that it's just utterly unusable, which I'm very capable of doing because I nerd out about this stuff. So a brief overview of what we've made here. We've created a text field here. We've created a default and active. The way that we've named these things are actually through a frame around it, forms. So we have components, forms, and in fact, we could even call this a design system or design system components, whatever we'd like to. But keep in mind that the structure here, when you look in the assets panel or when this thing gets published, will be whatever the name of the file is, and then our page names, components, and as we flick over here, we see components. Notice this here, local components right there. We open this up and we can start seeing this structure, dialog, form, forms, icons, media. Obviously, I might want to pluralize in the right places, maybe dialogues, forms, you get what I'm saying. But whatever we organize this and how we name this will affect the way that these elements show up in this asset panel. So right now what we've done is we've created components, and then of course within that page name, then frame name, we now have forms here. And a way to check this out is notice this label here, forms. So if I put in just some random label here, Raji, incorrectly spelled, notice that now it's gotten reorganized. It's instance, and it's gotten reorganized to put all of these components here, button, form, text field, all these things under that Raji label. Of course, if I rename it again to forms, we're going back to that old naming convention. We'll see here that it's under forms here. And then, of course, we can see the different things here. Now, one thing that we've got are some structure components. Now, I don't want them on my form because these are going to be in here. When a designer looks through these components, a designer is going to see these underscore ones. Now, if you remember from the previous episodes, these underscore ones are actually, and if I pull them out here, you'll see, they're actually not intended to be used with the published design system. They're actually intended to be used just as helper components here. So I need to sort through that. Yeah, Leandro, I'll let Ozra take care of you on that one, take care of getting you the link, and I'll pause in just a little bit for Q&A as we're moving along. All right, so I'm gonna finish walking through this. Notice here we've also got this button structure. That's actually just the internal content of the button. And then of course, these are really my real components here. And you can see in the layers panel how I've named them: text field slash default, text field slash active, text field slash valid. And you might be asking yourself, like, why name them all the same, or why have the slash naming there? Is that important? Let's create an instance of this by alt dragging this component here. You can see it's an instance by this bordered diamond, as well as the instance menu here will say instance. When you click on this, it'll actually say component. That's going to be your master component. So the reason that we're naming this, and this is the first step of like testing that I want to talk about, we need to be able to test this in a way that your designers, like, to kind of simulate how your designers might work with this. So I'm a designer. Hi, I'm Raji, I'm a designer. And I am working with this text field. So I'm gonna put in my placeholder text here. Maybe it's like enter a value. This is one way of testing. It's just quite literally grabbing an instance of something, a component that you've made, and then coming in and typing a value here. What happens when I continue to type? Oh, so we've already found one issue, right? This thing doesn't auto resize, and maybe we don't want it to, but this is kind of a weird experience. And if I'm a designer, I'm probably thinking, well, I don't understand, like, what is this broken? So this is one way to test the bounds of your components, is just to start entering data in, entering in long strings, and see how it will respond with that. All right, let's keep on moving through this. Now, another way to test this would be if I'm using this field and I want to be able to swap it out. So say I've got a default field and I'm showing, this is what it's like when a designer or a user may enter a value, but this is what it's like when it's valid. So I'll want to put in my value here. All right, valid entry here. And then what if I want to switch this? So I want to simulate as if I'm a designer, and I'm going here, okay, great, I've got these related components. Now, hopefully this is kind of becoming clear why we named things the way they did with that text field slash, because all of those text field slash components, active, default, valid, error, they're now all listed here, which makes my life as a designer a lot easier. Because now I'm able to go, okay, I want to go ahead and have that valid state. Now, did my overrides work? Did this text actually transfer over, or did I lose it? In this case, it did work. Everything worked out perfect. So we're able to say, awesome, this is working. We're able to switch. Can we switch anything? Can we switch to default? Can we switch to active? Can we switch to disabled? Can we switch to error? Can we switch to multi-line? Maybe not. It looks like we actually can. So that's great. In multi-line, can we actually resize it, or can we enter in multi-lines? Let's start doing this, start entering in, and of course we can. So we've kind of proven out that this is really good, right? But we can't just, as a design system, you can't just create a few fields and then expect everything to work. So we've tested values, we've tested swaps. Now we want to be able to see if we can test out, like, what's it like when you're actually using this to design something greater than just a field? Because these are just building blocks to create something much greater than just a field. So this is what we're going to start doing today. I'll answer that question from John in just a second. I keep going over to that chat. This is what we're going to do today, is we're going to be working through these and testing out a bunch of different combinations of things, building things. And I think the best way to actually really test this out wouldn't be to just put a bunch of text in all these things. That's a good preliminary method. But then after that, let's just start building some things. So let's start building some dialog boxes. Let's build some real UI to really test this. Give ourselves some tasks and projects to see if it's really going to work and measure up. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the rest of what I built. So we've got buttons here, we've got toggles, we've got checkboxes here. Now it's not complete, but we're going to work with what we have. Now what I built while y'all were out is actually built, and I want to show you some cool things that I built here. I built a tooltip, and I want to make sure that I define exactly how a tooltip should work. So I don't want a tooltip. I want it to be multi-line. So I want to be able to go tooltip line here. I want that little beak to always be centered. And then I want to be able to enter a second line in case I want a multi-line. And I can do that. I can also center that text if I like. Maybe I need that text centered by default because that looks kind of weird. So what I would do here is just test this and then realize, oh, in the master, I'm going to bring this up here so you can see that this is indeed an instance. I'm going to bring this up here so you can see that this is indeed the master. A lot of times this is how I'll test it. I'll actually go through this and I will type in the instance and then go, oh, I need this to be centered text by default. So I'll come back here by command clicking on this tooltip text and centering it. You can see that the instance now will inherit it. Great, so I've already done a little bit of testing on this as well. The tooltip's really interesting. Let's see how it works. I'm gonna move this back here into this frame and just work with the instance. The tooltip's kind of interesting. I have decided to build this all with auto layout, and I've decided to have the ability to turn on, so turn off the bottom beak, turn on a top beak, turn off that, and then I have a horizontal frame where I'm able to actually bring in a left and right beak. And so I want to test all these little combinations and just see if they work. What happens here if this is, I want to take this beak and I want to align it to the top. Well, does that work? Right now, it actually does work. So if I use these auto layout align things, you can see that my little beak adjusts to the top. I have a few different settings here with auto layout, center, bottom, and then stretch. We'll just stretch it all the way to the height. But it looks as if this is working just fine here, which is great. Okay, moving on. We also created this menu here, just like a popover menu. And I'm going to change the background of this so that we can see the elements that I've created on it. And the way I typically approach this is I start from like as atomic a level as I can. So like this is a menu item. And then I create another component, and that's called menu items. So I can put a lot of menu items in there or a little. The more menu items I put in here, you'll see that it's actually brought into here. So I can actually just keep on adding and adding and adding. Of course, I'm just going to label this menu item, and then my designers can use this. And this is menu items embedded in there. And then in this way, I could say menu item hover, menu item active, etc. So I'll need to, we're not going to go into this too much in detail, but we're going to go ahead and just use this as it is and talk about this as opposed to developing all of the different states for menu item, because I would love to have an active state and a selected state and all of these things. So just to give you an idea of what we built here, and this is using that same tooltip kind of technology here with menus inside of it. That would be our popover with menu in it. And then, of course, I built a little toast. That's going to be the things that pop up on a screen on the bottom. And I thought to myself, a toast might contain like a right and a left item. And then I can use, then I can add an icon in there. Additionally, what I did is I broke out in the same manner. Let's go ahead and change this frame back to a light color. I broke out in the same way the atomic elements of what I felt a dialog was. So here's my dialog, but I have a header that goes in it, and that's going to be a component. I have a close button, and that's going to be a component. I have content here, and then the content right now I've just set to some random text. And then of course I put all those elements together right here. And you can see here I've got a dialog, and I've got some auto layout frames to kind of allow it to adjust and flex. And then I've also got my 3 elements here. I've got my footer, my content, and my header. And of course I can turn off any of those if I ever want to, and the auto layout should adjust. I can also just turn on and off my close button, and it just works, which is awesome. Now let's test it. But before that, let's talk a little bit about your questions and see what y'all have to say. Azra, what do we got?
Okay, mate, I think that's how I pronounce it. Why use a component for the button text instead of a text style?
Did you say, can you read that one more time, Azra? I missed a little bit of it.
Yeah, why use a component for the button text instead of a text style?
So I'm actually doing both in tandem. So if you'll notice here, I've got the button label, but it's actually bound to a text style called button style. So That way, each one of my instances of this component are still bound to that style. And if I ever decided that I wanted to go change that button text style, let's say I did not want uppercase, so I go in here and I change it to original case, that should change here. I could also up my font size and notice that it's actually upping across all my buttons. So I'm actually using both text style in tandem with an actual button component.
Cool. Another question from Adam is, for the menu item component, can you edit only the number of items at the instance level?
Ooh, so I love that question, and I'm really glad you asked it, and I'm glad that, that we can talk about this, just because I've struggled with this so much. So when I first started with Figma, I would bring out something like this. Imagine this is my popover. So imagine I'm using this in my design system, and I type in here, I want my popover, and here it is. Awesome. Okay, great. I want to be able to add like menu items to this. Or maybe I don't even want menu. Maybe I don't want a list. I want just like an image or something in there. Maybe it's informational. Maybe it's just text. So if we come over here, this is why I've designed it with a content slot. Now, a slot isn't a terminology that Figma uses, although it is a very on the rise bit of terminology that people within front-end development use, but also people in design industry as well use it. And a slot is basically something that you can put anything into. So right here I have content, and if I ever wanted to bring in something new there, instead of the dreaded detach symbol, which detach instance here, I could go ahead and now change out these things and delete out this content and add new things in. But the biggest issue I face then, it's not connected to my design system. So what I would advise, and what a practice that I really got into that I loved, was this. Now, if it's just a simple list and you know that they're always just gonna have like maybe max 10 menu items, and this popover will never be used for anything else, you could simply just come in to your menu item text. Sorry, I have to keep changing the background color on this. I'll organize that a bit better later. But you could always just come in here and duplicate your menu items and put, say, 10 of them in there. And I think this is a really good example of a way to just do things in a simple way without making it overly complex. And then if I'm down here in the instance, notice that I've got all these menu items that are hidden. And then of course, and this is how I first started working with these sorts of things, I could then just turn them on and fill out my items. Item number 2, blah, 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 blah. Now, what happens in the situation where I actually don't want any of these things? This little popover component needs to be flexible enough for me to just put any old thing in there. So here's a way that you could go about doing that. One is you could actually bring in the menu item list here if we'd like to, and we can see the width of this. Now it's not really smartly set, but it's at 293. So I'm just going to detach this here just because I wanted the size of that menu item. And I'm going to take out the menu items in here. Essentially, I could create a new frame and this would work just fine too. But let's just say I want to put some big centered text in here. This is my big centered text. And let's say I wanted that to be centered, and I want it to be the this color here, this light color. And then I want a button. So I want to go ahead and grab my primary button. There's my primary button. I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to get rid of that menu item and say I want that full width. So I'm going to do an auto layout stretch within that. And let's see here. Maybe I want a little bit of padding. All right. I think I've got this text area set. All right. Now let's add a little bit of padding. Maybe it needs a little bit. Never mind. We won't even go as far as padding. Now, if I just simply create this into a component, and I'll just underscore name it because it's local to my instance, I don't need to publish this. And I'm just going to say popover choose content. Does it really? I don't have to name it. But if at any point now I want to, I can come into this content within this popover, and it's an instance. Anything that's a component that's a nested component of another component, I can always swap out. So I can come over here and say, oh, I want that popover choose content. Oh, cool. Now I can go ahead and do whatever I want to in there. I can make this a little bit of padding there, and boom, now I've got this text in here. I'll stretch that text. Great. I can add some internal padding in between those things, but I can still now use my design system, and I'm still using my popover, but I've architected in such a way that allows me to just swap out content there. So if we have any more questions, hit me with them. Otherwise, I'm moving on.
One more question from Jared. Is there a way to swap out the master component in place with an instance? It sounds like he's found that moving components out of the comp prevents accidental overwriting.
Yeah, so that's if I understand your question correctly. We've got a master component in another file. We need to move it. That's a current limitation of Figma. That's pretty tough to work around. One thing that you could do is nest another component in your master component if you need to be able to do that. TJ is also bringing up that there is a plugin for that. So TJ, that's awesome. I would love to see that plugin as well. All right. Let's move along. Okay, so I think one thing that's important is that with your design system, you're always creating things that people will be able to use. So for instance, I think it's really tempting to be able to want to be able to create like fully flexible components that can do anything at any size, and that's awesome. But there are some limitations to being able to nest these things in components and use them in a predictable way. So one thing you might consider as well is just creating the sizes that you need. So in this case, I knew I needed a 320 width media component with a 16:9 ratio, so I created one, image default. And then of course here I've got image square, and I've got image square small. And this one I have an image portrait, and so on and so forth. I can just swap those out. Now, let's do the same example here. Let's test out this card component. Now, notice, I think one of the things, and it's a little bit of a gotcha, on these components. If I wanted to be able to swap this image out here in this instance of this card component, and I wanted a square image here, the one thing I would have to make sure is that if right now in Figma, if you swap out a component, and this component here that's getting swapped is not auto layout, it'll actually try to honor the same size component with the swap. So even if I was swapping this 16:9 here, this image, and I was swapping it for a square, it would resize it into that container. Now, this is the gotcha, and this is the cool thing. In this card, I've actually, in this main component, I've actually set my image components, these things here, these media image components, I've set them out to be actually auto layout. So Figma knows, oh, this is auto layout, so I can swap it out with nothing and it'll resize. I could swap it out with something much taller and it'll resize. So in this component, all I simply have to do now is drop down my instance, and you can see my other sizes: portrait, square, small, etc. So if I do square, notice it'll just change out this in my auto layout card, which I think this is a really cool thing to understand, but know to create these extensible swaps. I think once a design system designer or designer at Figma gets used to this kind of notion of swapping, it's really, really powerful. All right, so I'm gonna start sharing how we might test some more with this. So in our design system, let's say we have this. We've got, actually not even in our design system, let's say we know we have to be able to create a dialog from our old system that has this kind of like multi-line text description, and then it's got like a save this art, and then it's got a media here, and then this never mind and save buttons. So I'm gonna test this out. I'm gonna grab my dialog box, and I'm gonna attempt with my components here to try to see if I can rebuild something like that. So of course, I'm gonna type in here, save this art, and then maybe it doesn't have a subtitle. So I can actually delete that out. And does the spacing and padding, of course, look right when I delete that out? And notice that this dialog header is all auto layout as well. That way it knows to resize. The next thing I want to do here is that I want to see if I've got the ability to have a media component. And of course, in this dialog component that I built, that once I publish, y'all can kind of dissect and go through. But I actually built in a little media slot here. Now, if I turn it off, it's just a normal dialog. But if I turn it on, it actually bumps it over, and I still have my content area here, and I still have this here. I still have my media component here. Okay, this is perfect. Now I need that form here. So if I wanted to be able to swap this content out, notice that I've also created a dialog content area for that swap. So let me go ahead and create something here. I'm just going to copy this content area. Now this is using my method of using these kinds of swaps. You don't have to do it this way. If you want to detach your instance and do it that way, I would cry inside a little bit, but this is how I like to do things, so I'm showing it here. All right, so I'm going to just say this is going to be my new dialog content, and this is going to be my save art content. And of course, I can underscore name. This would be a local component. This would be something that a designer would do in their own mockups, in their own flows. I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to see, do I have a text area? All right, what do I have? Is it multi-line? Now notice that I started typing in text area, and I'm not finding things within my design system. This is from another library. So if you ever notice this as you're doing this, you might be like, oh yeah, in order to design this, a designer might type in text area. I can simply fix this by coming on over to my multi-line text field. And here, notice that it's called multi-line. If I simply put in the description here, multi-line, what else? What other terms might I use? Text area, maybe multi, and those are my search terminology. Now let's give this a try. This is all part of testing and trying to see if this is really going to work out. All right, let's try to insert that in again. So I'm going to type in text area. And sure enough, there it is, multi-line text area multi. It even shows me on the hover my new search field. So in this way, I can make my design system so much more easy to navigate by simply just documenting keywords and things like that in my design system. So the other thing that I might want to do as well, if I go to this main component here, I may want to actually document that out like keywords like that, and then put in some other stuff here. Maybe I want to put in a class that you would use in code. So maybe that's text area multi-line or something like that. So you could actually document this out in this way for your developers so they know the classes, now they know the keywords, all this stuff. All right, coming on back to here, let's take this multi-line text and let's put this into this content. I'm going to remove that. And this is another way of me testing. I realized I don't need it this size, I need it the full width. Can I expand it full width? Yes, I can. Would I need like a label? Oh yeah, I actually would need a label. So what if I just typed in field? Would something come up? All right, this is great. I've got a label, helper, all this stuff. Maybe I want to use this. So I'm going to get rid of this multi-line, put this in here. I want a little label on it and say like, add your description here. Now I don't have to actually design this all in this little box if I don't want to. I can simply just take this save art content, remember our trick. I'm going to come here into my layers, go to my content and swap this out to that save art content. Now I can actually edit it inline here and see how it looks. Oh, I don't need this helper text. Cool, great. The other thing is it's not going full width. So let's just see if it will. Can we come into this on this instance level? And I'm just doing a lot of clicking. And can I just go full width? And is it predictable? Is it doing what I thought it would do? Yeah, it actually is. It looks like it went full width. Can I actually take this field out and just do like a swap for a multi-line? Indeed, I can. That's great. Can I actually change this to the normal text here? Or, yep, that all works really well. Now, how would I create? Do I just add in more lines? Okay, and so in this way, we're going to be able to test out like whether or not this will work within components because we're nesting them and we're swapping them. One thing that I did notice is that this still has this gap down here. And why does it? And it looks because I actually turned off this text here, but I didn't turn off this here. So that may be a conversation you have to have with your developers and designers is, do we want to be able to actually like click this? Can we lock that layer? No, we can't because we actually need to edit it. Okay. All right. So you might have some workarounds there, but once I actually turn this off, great, we're good there. And this is all good. Add your description here, save this art. Now let's test out the footer. Let's just try save. Great. This is all working out exactly how we thought. This lined up here. This button actually went over. That means our constraints are working. This right and center constraint, perfect. What if I just deleted the secondary button? Is that good? Awesome. So in this way, I'm messing with the design system. Maybe I put in here longer text, never mind. Okay, that works out perfect. What if I need the close button on here? Let's come in here. And we have this dialog close element. Now this is a cool little trick I'd love to share with you. This is all auto layout vertically, but what I did is I actually created a 0 height frame here and then just took the dialog button and put it way up and to the right, but it's taking 0 height, so it's not pushing down all my content. And I can simply now just turn this off and on, and now I have a little close button, and it's even offset from the content. So this is a really cool thing. I've seen that this has worked. Now that I have all this content in, what happens when I turn off certain things, turn off the media? Does it just work? Yes, it does just work. This is great. I don't know why I have this big rectangular box there. I do need to figure that out. What happens when I put in multiple lines here? Does the content shift down in the way that it should? Indeed, it does. What happens when I hit the far ends of it? Well, we probably hit a problem here because if I go here, notice that's very, very close to that close button. So I'm going to probably have to do some adjustments on this and maybe make this padding on the right just a little bit something, because we don't want a mock-up that looks like that, and we don't want that getting shipped. So we're going to have to address that as well. All right, I think this is plugin time. I want to show you some cool plugins that we can use to test out a little bit more in a robust way. Let me hit some questions really quick. Alzra, do we have any questions that need addressing?
We do. One of them is Ryan wants to know, what kind of naming convention or component setup do you recommend when designing for light and dark mode?
Okay, so this is it's another one of those it depends kind of an answer. So really, I think you have to ask yourself the context in which a designer would be using this. So the question really is, if I'm in this text field here and I need to swap this out, I'm creating iterations of a design mockup and a flow, and that's like text field. And then the next thing I need to do is show that it's active, and then it's got a valid entry, like a valid entry in it. And I want to do all these steps. At that rate, I'm going to want to, probably my most common use case will be swapping out here. And this is where I'm using and utilizing that naming convention, is to be able to swap out to these things here. Now, if your use case is often a light/dark, switch, like you're doing this a lot, then it might be smart to do like text field /light/ etc. Out of the box, probably my default answer for you would probably be to just have 2 pages. One's light, one's dark, and then there's like a mirroring of both component sets there, the light and the dark ones there. Or you actually preface everything with light/, because light and dark mode probably encompass almost everything, right? Other than text style, well, actually including text styles. Light and dark mode will probably be like, you're gonna want a light/forms, light/dialog, light/whatever. So I might encourage then at that level to do like a dark frame around this. So this would be dark mode. And then your light mode might be an exact copy of this with the master components with the overrides on them. And that would be light/. But I would love to look at your system a little bit more, because I know it's not that simple, and I could be steering you in a wrong direction there, really depending on your use case.
Well, I have another question. Daniel wants to know, when handling multiple reusable images, would you say it's better to make them into components or color/image styles?
I would do, from what I've seen, and I can answer this pretty confidently, I would do both. So the one issue that I have with color/component, like image styles, and for those that are maybe exactly following that, what I can do here is say I've got this really beautiful image, And I know I'm going to be using this a lot within my design system. Maybe it's an illustration that I'm using that's for my brand, or maybe it's also just like filler text, filler image that we'll use a lot. I can just simply take this here and create a style from this, a fill style, and have these images. My biggest issue with this method is this. If I go here and I'm going to create a style, and this is going to be images, and I'm going to call this floral. Okay, let's say I create that style. Here's my biggest issue. Let's say I'm creating a frame and I'd like to be able to put that image in there. I go here, which is great. It's right there available for me. It's I can see it here. The only problem I have with this is that these previews right now are so dinky. They're so small. I can barely make up what that is. And then my other problem with this fill style methodology is the fact that designers may not always know to look here, and they may be thinking, well, these are assets. These are image assets. And so they might be looking here for my image library assets. So I think my answer would be that most likely in most scenarios, I'm going to put them into a component. And in this case, it could be as simple as this. Right here, we've got this image component. And notice I have all these fills. I can just stack a bunch of fills in there. I do this a lot with my avatars. I'll just put an avatar, avatar, and just put a ton of different ones here. And these are just for my sample content. Now, I don't do a ton, but maybe like 10 different images here. And that way I can quickly, in my media assets panel here, I can quickly just put in, all right, I need my image, I need this one. Okay, boom. Let me actually get a quick image so I can represent, or yeah, let me show really quick how this might work. I do want something that is glorious and beautiful. All right, here we've got another really cool image here. All right. All right, so we've got this image here. These are all by Joey Chow, which is like a super amazing artist. I love him. Let's say we want both of these in this component. I can simply just copy the fill here by selecting it on the side and then Command C or Control C. And then of course, when I'm in this image here, see the fill here? If I just Command V, it's gonna stack those fills. So once again, if I do this on the master component, now, let's see if I'm stacking those fills correctly. All right, boom, yes, it's working. So now I can actually, anytime I'm in this assets panel as a designer and I type in image, this must be a cache result. Oh, there we go. And I bring in this default, I can just come through here and change my different, oh, I want to do this one, or I want to do this one. And this is how I might approach it. Just keep those assets all in that assets panel so they seem like a predictable place to go. Kind of a long answer to that, but hope it helped.
That's all the questions for now, Roger. You can keep going.
All right. Okay, so I want to share some plugins with you. I think that these will be really powerful in your journey to testing out all your design system stuff. So the first thing let's do is let's just test out, we started talking a little bit about this, but let's test out some of these things. So within our components, let's just come here and see how we might navigate this. I see that I've got some naming issues here. This is going to confuse folks. So I'm going to probably want to move these underscore named ones out. This won't be final in our design system because they won't publish, but I do want to move those out into maybe another area. But let's just bring in all of our buttons. Let's bring these in, and let's just see if these work, how we might think that they would work. I'm going to take these and I'm going to tidy them up, and I'm going to align them. All right, let's tidy them up again. I'm really doing great at this, as you can see. There we go. Okay, so enter the first plugin. I'd love to share it with you. It's called Similayer. I'm going to go ahead and link it here. Similayer allows you to be able to do a more strong layer search and select things. So let's see here. Let me get you that plugin. All right. So this one, I'm going to demonstrate really quick how Similayer works. And the way that Similayer will work is I can just type in Command/ to bring up my quick menu here. And I'm just going to type in Similayer rather than going through my plugins menu. Now it says select exactly one layer we'll base the properties on. So I'm going to select this button and I'm going to actually say, you know what, I might want to say all these text layers because what we want to do is test all the text of these things. So if I go, okay, great, this text style here, it'll actually select all things by work sans bold, Or I can actually say, oh, I'd like to be able to say, select all layers with the label, with this label on it. So I can use lots of different ways, like the layer name, and then select all the layers. So you notice as soon as I did that, it selected every single text item there. Another plugin that I'd love to share with you is this one called Faker. So Faker allows you to, I did Figma Walker. Okay, Faker allows you to just put in fake data here. So I can put in a first name, a last name, who knows what you might want to have, but really test out this button and see if it's working with all of these different text bits in here. So notice if I just type in now, after I've used Similayer and now I'm using Faker to put in stuff, I can actually just try out various different bits of text and see if it works. Let me get a link to that, that Faker plugin for you as well. So there's Faker. Faker's a really good one. So Faker is also very simple. You're not going to bring in images and things like that. You're just bringing a bunch of data, like a bunch of text. In this way, though, we can actually do the same exact tests. So say we put in text field, and we could actually bring in all of our text fields, right? We could bring in these and just see, like, do they work? So let's get rid of Faker here for a second. Let's bring in some different text fields, including our multi-line text. And because I have to have them lined up, I'm going to do that. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to select this. Now, we don't need to use Similayer. I can also just hold Command and Shift and select all those text layers. So if I don't have too many of them, no sense using Similayer. It's not that big of a deal. I can put in Faker here, and I could try in some more like maybe multi-line kind of stuff. So multiple words or single word or multiple sentences. And now I can see like, wow, we kind of messed up some stuff here. So once again, this should not work this way. So I know that my text area should not allow for multi-line text. So I need to go fix that. So I'm just gonna copy these and I'm gonna come into my actual components. That way I can preview them as I fix things. And now I'm gonna go, okay, I need to make this single line text here. And I actually have it in a structure here. I probably need to not set it to this multi-line. I forgot to set auto width. So you notice here that it works how I think it should. Unfortunately, it also just extends past that icon, but this is the way I've set up my design system. It was a known shortcoming. I'm gonna be okay with that. And then I wanna go ahead and also set the same on all of these left icons and right icons. Just set those and fix those text areas. Great, those are all fixed. Now I have fixed those, and let me share another great plugin for you as well. All right, so we've got this one called Content Reel, and this one's gonna be a lot more rich in how you can use it. So I've just shared it with y'all there. Let's go ahead and just fire up the plugin and see how it might work. In fact, I might even wanna see if I can bring in my, my media elements at all, my image elements, just to test out some of these things. Hey, how does that work? Will that work on that one? Will it work on this default? Great. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna type in, actually, wrong typing in. I'm gonna type in Content Reel here. And Content Reel is a pretty rich feature set with all kinds of stuff. If you do sign up for it and create an account, you can actually create your own content library, so your own images and everything, and just bring these in. In this way, it might be a richer way than just using the assets panel here, depending on what kind of data you want to store. Maybe it's usernames or descriptions. Maybe you're working for twitch.com and you want to be able to like have gamer descriptions and stuff that didn't feel like lorem ipsum. In this way, you could actually use this plugin and just put in commonly known stuff here. But you do have avatars here as well. So you could literally just go into this avatars area and just load in some avatars. So you see here that we actually were able to load an avatar. So we could actually use Similayer, select all of our avatar components, and then use this avatar thing here, and then go ahead and just bring in those images and see how these components work when I actually select an image here and then select an image on the right. Is it feeling how I want? Remember, we did put that little tint on our image layer here, and you'll see here this tint. And so I want to see, is this really working in the way that I thought, or do I need to darken it? In this way, we can vary our content a lot. So I think these are some really great little assistive plugins that can help you. I'm not going to demonstrate the next one as I want to make sure I have plenty of time, but I'm just going to give you a few other ones that are like really cool. There's one called Data Populator. I'm going to go ahead and share that here. And then there's another one. Let me see here. It's called Change Text. This one's really interesting, and I will demonstrate this one here. Just because I might want to actually change text that's the same for everything, not just randomly for everything. So let's say I decide to make all these super wide. I'm going to delete these here. I'm going to be testing out these fields here. And then I'm going to use Similayer, or I can just Command Shift select to multiple select just those text areas. And then I can use this plugin called Change Text. Now, what this allows me to do is it allows me to actually match text, replace text, but also just type in a value. And it's almost like a multi-edit. So I can put in here, my field value here, update all of them, and you can see that it just updates everything. Janelle, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but by Janelle Gogari. Yeah, this is your plugin. I'm so glad to see that. So Change Text is cool because I can just go ahead and type in all these values and see if they're actually working well, and then do like that swap thing again, right? I can swap this and see, do my overrides, are they working right? So we've got that there for you. All right, now lastly, these are all, and I wish I could just spend an hour and like 3 hours with you and just nerd out and continue to talk more about all sorts of things like testing overrides and then testing swaps. And what you want to do with these things is make sure that maybe I change from a default image to a square image, and is my image override maintained? The other thing I would love to talk to you about, and I really will try to see if I can get to this, is like icons. What happens when you swap out an icon and it changes colors? Oh my gosh, like that's kind of frustrating in Figma. And what are some methods around that? So I think I'll have enough time to get to that, but I do want to share one last plugin here. And this is going to be, I think, a design system conversation or demonstration would not be complete without talking about accessibility of all kinds, of course. But for now, we're just going to talk about color and visuals and reading text off of a certain color background. So of course, for accessibility, we're going to go ahead and share one of my favorite ones. That's going to be Contrast, the Contrast plugin. Now, the Contrast plugin is pretty easy. Say I wanted to check this text right here of this toast. I want to make sure that that text is going to be readable on this dark background. If I just type in Command/ and type in Contrast, I can actually see here, and Contrast just kind of does it automatically. So if within Figma, I can see now, okay, great, like this is working. This is working for me. Like I have my AA, or if it's a bigger one, it's going to be AAA. So we're all good here. Enable Smart Sample for layers, really cool because you can actually smart sample it over images. So that's really rad, and I've never seen a plugin do that. But let's just say, for instance, we actually change it to this pink. You can see that it's all live. So I can actually edit this thing on the fly. I don't have to rerun the plugin. I can actually see that, oh, even this cool, vibrant teal color, I could actually use on this toast. Or like, what if I used this peach color? That works too. But what if I use this blue color? Nope, it looks like on normal size text, which this is going to be a normal size body text. It's set to my body style here, which is going to be like a 16 pixel size, that this fails my contrast rating. So in this way, we can do a lot of testing of our components before we ship those out and create tons of designs with bad accessibility. Once again, like I said, this conversation for accessibility is much bigger than just this contrast thing. It's much bigger than this color text legibility thing. But I did want to bring that in, share that with you. Okay, so the last little thing I wanted to share with you before I've got to sign off and publish this thing is this idea of you can create really complex things, but they might not be usable. So I wanted to give an example here. Let's say I'm a designer, and let's say I'm using this toast component. So I'm going to just bring this down here, down into our little playground area. All right, so I've got this little toast component, and I need to be like, hey, success, like you did it. Good job. Okay, and in this toast component, I have these left and right slots that bring in icons. Do I want the icon on the left? Do I want it on the right? Let's say I turn off the left, and this is the situation. You may have ran into this a lot. So now I want to change out this icon for a different icon. I want like something different. So I come in here. Actually, this is a better example. Let's say error uploading your image, okay? And I wanted to be able to put in here like a little error icon. So I drop this down and I go to error, but I notice that it's disappearing and I wonder why. So I come into this icon here and I notice that the icon's default color is this dark color. So really the question then is, do I create a light and a dark? Which I think the answer could absolutely be yes. It could absolutely be yes to create a light and a dark icon set. That way there's no question about whether or not you can color these things or should color these things. It's just done. But in this case, you may have ran into this situation where it's very frustrating that every time you do a swap, it actually resets all of these qualities and characteristics, and it doesn't keep my color. Now, hold on. Figma's been definitely working on like preserving more overrides and instant swaps. So I just want to encourage you with that. But there is this notion, and this is how a weakness that I get into, I tend to over-engineer the crap out of everything. So here's what I did. I'm going to show you my very own over-engineering. So I decided, I was like, I don't care. I want those designers, every time they swap, those colors are honored. So let's just say, I'm going to change this color to the default. Let's say the icon was a little bit more subdued and faded out. Cool, there it is. So I created a frame, and feel free to use this technique, although it may be over-engineering for you as well. But what I did is I created a fill layer here. And then if I turn off this mask, you can see that that fill layer is just simply a little square box, a little fill. And then I actually created another frame under that, and that's my mask layer, and I just called it mask. Within that, I actually put in this icon component. So the real question here in the conversation you should be having with the designers that are going to be on your team is, are these things over engineering? Yes, they do assist and they do help with your designer being able to switch that. So they're going to come into this toast. They're going to go, oh, okay, they have to navigate. It's a little bit more work. Left, fill, okay, I don't know anything. Okay, here's my icon. Great. I'm going to go to an error icon. Awesome. Now, the beauty about that is that the swap actually works. The color is honored, but I personally think it's over engineering, because I think that you may end up having more designer time lost with navigating all of these this crazy myriad and maze of all these layers and masks just to get to that component. Whereas in this scenario, what is in testing out whether or not this is like a good solution for us, let's go ahead and just see, okay, I put the icon in, I'm gonna swap the icon to this color, okay, I'm done. It's pretty fast as well. So I think it's important when you're testing these things out to not over-engineer. Sometimes simpler is better, even though you know you can flex those skills. Sometimes simpler is a lot better. I've got a few minutes, so I'm going to save for any questions that we got. Otherwise, I can show something fun.
Hi, Raji. One question that could be fun to answer is how do you batch swap all instances of a component in a file?
I might use something like, I wish I had this one present. There is something out there on the community, and I know this, I keep forgetting the name of it. I'm just going to type in batch swap. Let me get back to you later. I think, yes, TJ, thank you. I think it's called Master. There we go. I was going to say, I know it's by Gleb. So in this way, I think that you can move components and swap a lot of components out. I've not used Master a lot. I know a lot of people absolutely love it, but it also allows you to do something where you can actually create a bunch of components from those objects. So let me just share this, probably more than I can actually explain on stream, but get into that. Thank you, TJ. Thank you so much for remembering that for me, buddy. All right, any other questions?
I think for the stream.
Okay. I think, yeah, we've got just a minute or two, and I didn't know if we had anything that was like super fun that I could share with you. I just have something generally that I would love to sort of represent here, which is the idea that before what we were using is we were using a structured element inside of these text fields. And that was something that was like another text field wrapping another text field. And I think that's sometimes a place where over-engineering creeps in. So in this case, just keep in mind that when you do a swap out, so if you have a text field and another type of text field and you want to do a swap, just make sure that your layers are named the same, and that way the overrides for those text fields will preserve. I think that's a really good pointer. And the same is true for these kinds of image things. Just make sure that you do a lot of testing with those swaps. Danielle, somebody created, I think somebody's created an interactive D&D board, and somebody's also created, and I played it with the game table plugin, the Catan board game, which is fantastic. All right. Yes, Ultra absolutely won that game. I'll just for a little bit of fun, right before we drop off, I'm just going to put in game table, just so you remember this. Really cool. I love the uses of Figma, and I love that you can use it for all kinds of remote things and collaborations and groupthink, including games. So there's the game table plugin, which is fantastic. And then there is the Catan that's playable with this plugin. And that's just a file. So I'm actually going to copy that link as well. Happy gaming, happy designing, happy design systeming. I will be publishing this file so that you can look at the cool tooltip and all those cool things right after this. Thanks everyone for coming and being a part of this with me today. See you later.